Give the people what they want.
Show us what you got. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting and electric and illuminating episode of The Nerd and the Scientist. I am one of those two things, Benjamin, and with me is the other of those two things, Kovi. Welcome back, Kovi.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's nice to be back in Upside Down Land, aka Australia. How have you been recently?
I've been okay. I've been all right. I've been doing things. I've been going places, meeting people. Not really. Just usual stuff.
The
Walking the
good old
dog,
huge.
walking the kids.
Oh man, yeah. Being back in Australia with my dog. For those interested, his name is Newton, and yes, he is a scientist. Has been wonderful to see him again. He's been delving into quantum mechanics since I've been away, so I'm glad to get him grounded in more classical Newtonian physics.
Wow.
As he is named.
Well, my dog's name is Brooklyn, and while Coffee's dog was learning quantum mechanics, my dog started digging a hole and quit, and then laid down on it.
I see. So your dog is Brooklyn is more of an engineer than a physicist. That's okay.
Fine.
Let's go with that. Speaking of engineering, what is our topic for this week's episode, Benjamin?
Good one. We're talking about this week about space infrastructure. We keep sending probes and satellites and astronauts and supplies for those astronauts into space using only one method. That's a rocket, and it works. What are you gonna do? It works, but it's also takes an insane amount of energy, an insane amount of fuel, and all that adds up to an insane amount of cost.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're going to talk about creating some sort of a space infrastructure. How do we get more things off the Earth and into space quicker and cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of things that we already do that don't really use rockets, and there's a number of things that we can do with technology that exists today to get stuff off the Earth and into space and to do stuff.
Interesting. And I guess before we kind of dive into, these endless possibilities, some of which, as you said, are well within reach already. I think it's important to point out that there are so many great things that we would like to do in space that would be, incredibly useful for developing technologies that would be, good down here on Earth. As we've discussed in previous episodes, there are a lot of byproducts from space exploration that can help us down here on Earth. But also to kind of to satiate that craving, that inherent urge that a lot of us have to explore space, the new frontier, or the final frontier, depending on who you're asking. And I think that what people don't understand is that when you see in Star Trek or whatever sci-fi it is, you see these incredibly huge ships being built out in space. It's really important to think about practically. We can't just build all this stuff on the Earth and then launch it. It becomes prohibitively expensive. It becomes from an engineering perspective to the effort that you need to put in to get something like that through the atmosphere and out of Earth's gravity. It's problematic. So we need to come up with more creative solutions for how we get stuff into space, for how we build stuff in space. And that's why I think this is a really interesting and useful topic to talk about. But yeah, enough about the motivation. Let's hear about some of these possibilities. What have you got for us,
Sure.
Benjamin?
Well, let's start us off with what started off this entire idea. My son came home from school and he told me about what he discussed in science class. and they were talking about a theoretical or a proposed idea that can be built today called the
Hmm.
skyhook. It
Isn't
is
that
a
the Dr. J move with the
no, that's the
basketball?
spin launch.
Oh, that's-
We'll get to that. Skyhook is something that does not exist today, but it can. It's a momentum exchange tether where you
Mhm.
have two objects in space in orbit around the Earth, and they're connected to each other via tether, and they're tumbling around each other, connected always by this tether. And the tether is long enough, and the objects are far apart enough from each other, and the entire structure is close enough to the Earth that at its lowest point, it's skimming the outer edges of our atmosphere,
Mhm.
and at the highest point, it's something like a few, I don't know, like 10 or something more miles away. So it's a very long tether, and it's something we can build today. And the idea is that instead of needing to launch a person or cargo or what have you into space, you just need to get someone up to the top part of our atmosphere
Mhm.
and time it, of course, to and when the tether is coming down to grab them, and you have to be going in the exact same direction or whatever, and latch on, and then the tether will just fling you out as it carries you out of the atmosphere, and away you go.
So it's
And
like
the
a
tether itself will have its own engines and some fuel, so it can speed itself up and slow itself down. But it's a momentum exchange. So as things, it's also able to catch. So as things come in from outer space, it can catch the
mhm.
outer edge of the tether, and that can be used to transfer the energy to launch something out. And the idea that had my son most excited about is that you could put these little tether momentum exchange systems everywhere, in orbit
Mhm.
around Mars, in orbit around the moon, in orbit around Jupiter. And you could just aim and fling things back and forth around the solar system. That got him really excited. We were just throwing things. The solar system becomes the whole network of throwing, but really actually
Wow.
a very possible, probable thing. So it's actually kind of
I
cool.
love that idea. I mean,
Mhm.
often with NASA missions, they talk about, gravity assist slingshots,
Mhm.
right? So when, you swing past another massive body in space and you use its gravity to kind of sling you around. But this is like a more literal slingshot, not even a slingshot. It's like an interplanetary trebuchet system, just like
Yes.
yeeting things up and down. That's
As
wild.
a matter of fact, that trebuchet was one of the words I kept coming up in the articles I was reading about Skyhook. A lot of people want to call it the space trebuchet. So
Space
it would work.
trebuchet.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds
So that's
classy.
it is pretty classy. It's very on a, building something that big and getting it into motion would be an engineering feat in itself, but it's something like you said has to be built in space, and it can
Hmm.
be built in space. And then once it's working, it's easier to get more materials in space to just
Sure.
keep building on itself. You can also send something to the skyhook, and it'll just stay on the skyhook. It'll be a part of it. So it's itself it can grow into much more of a space station that also provides a skyhook service.
Cool. Yeah, I was wondering if like a space station type thing where it was like more of a ring rather than two ends of a tether might be more stable and that way you could kind of
Mm,
control the directionality and prevent things from moving in directions that you don't want them to move in.
yeah, that'd be even
Perhaps.
better. You can have like
Maybe. I
once it's a solid ring, you would have like infinite angles to shoot off from.
Yeah. Pew pew. Very cool.
See, it's got it.
So
The Kavi already improved it.
I mean, I'm no engineer. I'm no Brooklyn, but I'm just a humble physicist trying to think of ways to avoid problems. Because physicists are lazy and we like to avoid problems rather than getting difficult problems that we have to solve.
Okay, well that's
It
something.
kind of
No
this kind of
Skyhook.
reminds me, yeah.
All right,
Sorry,
moving
my
on.
brain's going in a different. My brain's
Uh,
going in a bunch of different directions. What have you
Kovi
got for us
mentioned
next?
the hook shot thing earlier. That is something that exists today. It's called the spin launch, and the spin launch is actually an incredibly simple, but it works contraption. Uh, Imagine you're in the desert and you come across a building that looks like a dinner plate standing on its side, and it is incredibly tall, incredibly thick, and that big dish is actually hollow, and inside it's a vacuum. And in that vacuum, there is this big motorized arm that just whirs and whirs around like a helicopter blade. And on
Mm-hmm.
one end of the helicopter blade, there's this weird missile shaped little uh, capsule.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts getting whipped around and around and around and around and around inside this big giant dinner plate at speeds of up to 4,700 miles an hour or 7,500 kilometers per
Oh
hour.
well.
And when it gets to the proper speed, the arm that's holding this capsule lets it go. And it lets it go at the one precise moment when it's heading straight up towards this little chimney bit on top of the dish. And it just punches out into the atmosphere. And once it gets to an altitude of around 200,000 feet, which it does insanely fast, it kicks on its engines. It has its own little engines, and it ignites and the capsule pulls around 10,000 G's, and
Holy
it's
moly.
off into space in a shot. It works. You can put anything on there that is not organic, otherwise it will be destroyed.
Wait, so they've tested this already a few times?
Yes, they've tested it. They've launched a satellite once. Um, it's You can put cargo in there. You can launch up to, where are my notes? 200 kilograms, 440 pounds of payload, which is quite a bit.
That's not
And
bad.
yeah,
Huh. What do you know? Like, are they doing this commercially yet? Are they, charging per kilo?
I don't believe that they're doing it commercially yet, but the concept has been proven and it's been tested and successful. And
Wow.
what spin launch can do is it can launch. It can. What's exciting about it is all this production. Uh, it can reload and relaunch
Mm-hmm.
again pretty quickly. So it's not like it could just launch 440 pounds of payload and that's it for the month. It can do it again and again and again. I think several
Mm.
times a day. Um,
Wow.
it's also uh, where was I going with this? Yeah, that's all I got. I lost my train of thought. It can launch. It can do several launches a day. Um, there is no fuel that's used except at the very last moment when it's really high up to just punch through the very last bits of our atmosphere. The
Mm-hmm.
capsule has its own engines, but the whole thing is electric. So there's
Wow.
no you don't have to stand 3 miles away for a minimum safe distance like you would at a rocket launch. You can be in the booth right there, and it's it's quick, it's quiet ish compared to a rocket launch, and it's incredibly cool. It's actually, if you anyone looks it up online, spin launch, it's a really it's pretty sick looking thing. From
Yeah,
the
I'm
outside,
still
odd.
stuck on that.
From the inside, way cool.
I'm still stuck on that visualization when you said, imagine you're walking through the desert, you see a giant vertical plate. I'd be like, okay, I'm clearly dehydrated. This is a mirage. This is not real. And then when I look at the actual pictures of what they've built, it's like it's exactly what I've pictured, just like this thing does not look real. It's like as
Right.
tall as the Statue of Liberty, and it's just this giant vertical plate, as you described. Damn,
With a chimney on one end. That's it.
with a chimney. Yeah, it kind of looks like a robotic snail, a
I'll
giant
give you that.
robotic
It looks like
snail.
a giant robotic snail. Do not look up spin launch. Only Google giant robotic snail. And let's see if you get it.
I,
Always
I'm
do.
I shudder to think what people. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. There's some strange stuff on the internet. Okay, well let's leave this there. Maybe this would be a good time for
Let's move on.
an
Let's
ad
move
break.
on. All
Uh,
right. Let's see. One more? Or you want to take
um, yeah, this could be a good time to
relay?
take an ad break. That seems
Okay.
like the opportune moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, step right up, space explorers and cosmic adventurers. Behold the ultimate innovation in space gear. Introducing the Sky Cap, the shower cap designed specifically for use on skyhooks and space elevators. Are you tired of your hair getting tangled and your scalp feeling dry during your thrilling journey through the cosmos? Say goodbye, messy hairdos, and say hello to the Sky Cap. With its cutting edge design and space age materials, the Skycap provides maximum comfort and protection during your zero gravity escapades. No more worrying about that floating strand or unruly locks. The Skycap has literally got you covered. Whether you're zipping along a skyhook at breakneck speeds or ascending to the heights of space in an elevator, the Skycap stays securely in place, keeping you feeling fresh and looking fabulous. So don't let space travel cramp your style, my intrepid adventurers. Step right up and get your hands on the Skycap today, because in space, every day is a good hair day.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I think it's pretty good. I like that one.
That should go to the archives of Congress or the Library of Congress, whatever you folks call it, and that should be just frozen as is in time for future
Mm.
generations of marketing students and just everyone. Everybody needs
I
to
think
hear
when
that.
you walk
That's
into the Library of Congress, there should be like some kind of like a holding pen in the lobby. Listen to that real quick, and then you can go into the Library of
and
Congress
then you
and
can
do
go
your
in.
you do your research. You're free to move about as usual, but before you go in, Skycap.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned space elevators in
I
that
did.
bit, and I'm curious. We haven't spoken about space elevators, I don't think yet. How do
Yes,
they
space.
connect into this whole world of space infrastructure?
Sure. The space elevator is something we could not build just yet, but we're awfully close. Um, First and foremost, we need a counterweight to connect directly to the Earth. So this is an actually very large engineering undertaking. I guess that my dog would do, not your dog. It's known as the space elevator, or also called the space bridge, or star ladder, or an orbital lift. And the idea is to use the energy from the Earth's rotation to literally just fling things up off the surface. We need to create a cable, a carbon fiber nanotube super strong cable that is where am I? 35,786 kilometers long. And if you remember from our previous episode, when we were talking about different altitudes and orbits and such, that is the orbit of something that's called a geostationary orbit.
Mhm.
And the reason would be is we need that cable to reach from the Earth to something way far out into space, high above the Earth, that stays in the exact same position as where it's connected to the Earth. So we need to find a place somewhere along the Earth's equator to anchor a cable that would then reach 35,786 kilometers up and connect to something on the other end to keep that tensile straight tight. So we need to capture something like an asteroid on purpose, bring it to Earth on purpose, connect it to the Earth, and then let the Earth's rotation just fling it around. So if you ever had a ball on a string and you spun it around your hand, that ball just goes round and round and round and round and round. Your hand gets tired eventually. You stop, it'll fall down. Earth doesn't get tired. Earth continually turns for the moment. So it would continually fling this thing around. And what's the point of that? The point of that is we would put something in, and I guess it's called a space elevator. So if you can imagine you step into an elevator, you put yourself, you put your supplies, whatever it is, and that elevator box or capsule, whatever, grabs hold of that cable, up you go. It'll just take you into space. You can launch up it and then grab hold of it and just continue going, or you can launch connected to it from the Earth. There's two ways to go up the space elevator. I wish I had more answers as to the technological wizardry behind how or why that works. That's why I have a scientist on the podcast.
I have questions. I don't have answers, but I
don't
have plenty.
Answers. I have Google.
Maybe one of our listeners knows. Maybe Brooklyn is listening, and they can answer some of my engineering questions. But I'm wondering, like, when I picture myself spinning around with a tether ball, I'm also picturing myself accidentally bashing into things around me as I spin around with this ball and a string. And I mean, if we're talking about something that's going to be at the same altitude as geostationary, and we're like using something like an asteroid as our tether ball, how do we ensure that we're not, crashing that asteroid into satellites that are in orbit at geostationary? How do we make sure that it's not hitting a bunch of other asteroids or meteors or other things like that? It seems precarious, let's say.
That is a good question. I would just like to be this big long thing that's constantly sweeping a path through whatever's already there and just wiping out this little lane of satellites.
But like it wouldn't just be a lane at that altitude. It would basically be a disc.
It would be
anything that's in the path. Yeah.
And then the asteroid itself top.
So as the cable sweeps around, any airplane or bird or space duck, whatever it is, anything that's in that path of the cable would also get hit.
In the atmosphere, it'd be fine. It would just, from our point of view on the ground and in airplanes in our atmosphere, it would just be this straight up thing, just the building that you'd have to avoid. But outside, I imagine it would be a little more difficult to make sure satellites and such, because geostationary orbit is probably the furthest orbit that we use at the moment beneath Lagrange points.
Sure, yeah, that's how Lagrange points.
And so everything that we have is below geostationary orbit. The space station is the big one.
Way below.
So how we can guarantee that the space station doesn't hit it, there's going to be a lot of steering going on.
Lots of steering. Just like one dude in a control room down on Earth just going, come on, Jeff, you got this, Jeff.
Because now there's this one steady structure, this needle-like thing sticking straight up out of Mexico.
I mean, that's the other thing. Like you say, like straight Structure. Well, yeah, lower. It would have to be more closer to Ecuador.
Sorry, it's more southern. Thank you. Lower.
But lower. But also like the whole like the atmosphere thing begs the question. It's like it's basically experiencing different atmospheric pressures, different gravities along the way. And I mean, I'm just thinking like what weird like yeah, you said carbon fiber nanotube. Um, it's making me think of like Buckminster Fuller weird shapes, or like I guess Kevlar fiber, but like I don't know if we actually have materials like that yet, at least.
I do know that for, I hope I get the name right, the transatlantic cable, right? That underwater communications cable that goes across the ocean.
Yeah, right.
It is coated. It is coated to protect it from shark attack, which is true. Sharks found it and enjoyed chewing on it because why not? And it caused damage and latency issues, so they had to repair it many times, many places. It is now coated in a deep sea, and it's coated in a version of Kevlar made
Uh huh.
specifically for a deep sea environment. So
Shark
it could take the
Kevlar.
pressure and it could take the pressure of the deep sea ocean and at the same time still retain its Kevlarness and be bulletproof ish or shark tooth repellent ish. And
Right.
not
So as
repellent,
long as the
resistant
sharks don't have armor-piercing rounds, I guess we'll be fine.
armor piercing teeth. Oh my god, sharks just got worse.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool.
Sharks with armor
As long as we
piercing
have a
teeth.
shower cap for that.
Oh, we got now shower cap for sharks. You nuts? You know how hard it was to make one for space travel?
Yeah, it would
Think
have to
of
be
that as
waterproof.
gonna be a waterproof shower cap. What are you nuts?
Ridiculous. Oh,
Waterproof shower
ridiculous.
caps.
The other ridiculous thing, the other ridiculous thing that I was going to tell you, I know that we started this segment a few episodes back, of a show me what you got. There's something
Oh no!
completely absurd,
Show us
completely
what you
absurd.
got.
It has nothing to do with space elevators, but when I was in the US just now, when I was in Berkeley, actually, I managed to procure a Klein bottle,
You
a
got one!
real life. Yeah,
Oh my god, a Klein bottle! I'm so jealous. Oh,
it's
oh,
so
oh. Did you pour
cool.
anything into
Look
it
at
yet?
it. I did not. There were instructions actually that came with it, some like very long instructions, including like what to do if you plan on pouring a liquid into it. And they said it actually already comes filled with liquid, 98% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. Weather permitting,
Quack,
there's
quack,
also.
quack. Yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
my
it's the
goodness.
coolest thing. There's this dude, I should be more respectful, a former astrophysicist, and brilliant computer scientist as well in his own right, Cliff Stoll. So Cliff lives in Berkeley, and he had figured out this manufacturing process to create real life Klein bottles, even though I should say this is a projection of a four-dimensional shape into our three dimensions. So in a real Klein bottle in four dimensions is basically something that you could walk along its surface and cover every part of it. So there's no inside and outside. It's kind of like a Mobius strip, right? So a Mobius strip, you can kind of start walking at one point and keep walking in a straight line and end up back at that same point, having covered the entire surface. Even though it like looks like it has two sides, it's only one. So a Klein bottle is kind of like that, but in four dimensions. It's
You
whack.
can walk on the outside of the bottle, keep going, then you go into the bottle, keep going, and then
Yeah.
you're back outside of the bottle again.
Right, but
nonstop.
technically there is no inside and outside. It's all one surface. Yeah,
I'm so jealous.
it's
Look at that
wild.
thing.
Yes. If you or anybody listening happens to be around the Berkeley area, um, you can contact Cliff and you can get your own Klein bottle. He sells them out of his house. He actually has a little nook in like a not quite a basement, but like a few feet high level that he stores all of the Klein bottles because he had them manufactured in bulk so that it made sense cost wise. And basically has this tiny little remote control robot that he sends in to get the boxes of Klein bottles and bring them back out. And he's just an
I don't know
incredibly
which is cooler, that
awesome.
he
Yeah.
made that he designed Klein bottles, that he has a supply of Klein bottles, or that he has a robot that goes and gets it.
I also love like he writes his own ads. Like this is some of the swag that came with the bottle. And it's like searching for a one-sided surface, need a zero volume bottle, want the ultimate in non-orientability, get an Acme Klein bottle. Like it's like our ads,
Brilliant.
but real.
That's
So yes.
hysterical. We're just making joke ads, and there's somebody in real life who has an ad that sounds like it, and he has an actual thing. That's it. I'm gonna actually make a space shower cap. Done.
Do it. Do it.
Done.
But yeah. So that's what I got this week on Show Me What You Got.
Love it. What do I have? Okay. Well, being conservative, I did not buy the full size Lego. Stop it, dumb dog. I did not get the full size Lego Mars rover. I got the little $4 version. It's cute. There you have it. No
Nice.
robots got it from me from Mustache and other of them. And it's
Although it kind
not
of
a
looks like his
representation of
robots.
a multiple dimensional thing, and it
It sounded
sucks.
like
I'd rather have.
your dog was barking because it wanted to tell us more about the engineering that we were discussing earlier.
Oh, this freaking dog. She has a spot in our backyard, our nice backyard, that she dug a hole into. So we backfilled it. So she redug it, and we backfilled it, and we redug it, and we put debris in there to block her from digging it. And she's not going to give up because engineers are tenacious. So she digs through obstacles. She's a clever mutt.
Incredible.
Crazy.
uh, Speaking of clever engineers, is there anything else that you wanted to cover on this episode about space infrastructure? Brooklyn says, yes, yes.
Well, let's do one more thing. Uh, let's say we have all this infrastructure in place and we're able to get people and objects up into space quickly, and we're flinging them around with sky hooks over to Mars, to Moon, everything like that.
Uh-huh.
How do we communicate with all these people that are up there?
Ooh.
Communication to outer space, or outer space, but to the Moon or to Mars, takes time because it only goes as fast as the speed of light, and the bandwidth in which we send information is very limited to what we're the communication that we're doing. But last year, and I did not write down the name of it, so I feel bad. But NASA successfully tested towards the end of 2023 a demonstration of streaming data via laser communication. The bandwidth was so high that, in theory, you could watch Netflix on it just fine. You'd have to send the request, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
back to NASA. I want to watch, I don't know, Toy Story. And then they would say, okay. And then they would start streaming it. And you would get it. You get full resolution, full sound, and everything like that. That's not what it's for. But they proved that that level of data is possible. So, still
Cool.
going to take some time. There's still that two-way communication gap, but the amount of information we can now send is incredibly, incredibly huge. So that's pretty awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that we definitely need to figure out how to optimize. I guess it's kind of like fiber optics communication, just without the fiber. You're just like using laser streams. Super cool. I like it. And
Yeah,
I guess that's the fastest way we can communicate is using
right,
electromagnetic radiation traveling at the speed of light.
right. So still, if I'm on Mars and I send a question to you, it's going to take me 20 minutes. Take 20 minutes for the question to get to you, but the response you send back could be insanely massive, or my question to you could be huge with incredible amounts of information. So science could technically get done faster, but
It
everywhere you read about this thing that NASA did, everyone just keeps equating it to streaming videos.
naturally.
Unless we're sending people to Mars to get on TikTok, otherwise,
I mean, it's a
some
relatable way to discuss data transfer. So, like when I talk about the ASCAP radio telescope that we were speaking about a few episodes back when we discussed radio telescopes. So
Mhm.
this Australian SKA Pathfinder telescope has a raw data rate of 12.5 terabytes per second. Now, that just like sounds like a big number. But for people who aren't familiar with terabytes or like data transfer, all you need to say is, okay, that's basically like downloading every episode of Doctor Who ever created 24 times per second. Yeah.
that's a
So
lot.
all of Doctor Who. And so, yeah, I guess like when you compare it to like episodes of a TV show that people know, like, they've had issues downloading or buffering or whatever it is, it's, I guess it's relatable. TV
That's
is the
awesome.
great uniter. Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
Pretty cool. I like it. This has been another fun episode. I always
I
love
liked it
these.
as usual.
I approve. We can publish this one.
Published.
Very good. Very
All right,
good.
gang. Thanks for listening again. Welcome back, Kavi. And where can people find you?
Benjamin, people can find me at Fun Fact Science on all of the social media platforms where I am trying to use social media for good, not evil. Um,
Noble.
what about you, Benjamin? Where can the people find you?
People can find me under the moniker of Science Actually. And primarily, all the good stuff is being posted on Le Facebook. Or you can find it on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, Mastodon, Hive, Blue Sky. There's that new one now called 8. I think it's called
8?
8. It's just a yellow 8.
I've not
Anyway,
heard
I
of
haven't
this.
set it up yet, but I'm tinkering with that because there's another day, another social network. Uh,
Naturally. Oh, and
and of course, you
YouTube.
can also find us wherever your podcasts are streamed from. Well, then again, I
And
don't need to tell you that because you're listening to us, so you're already
clear.
doing that part.
Yeah, clearly, if you're listening to this, you know where to find new episodes and old episodes of this wonderful show. Also, don't forget that you can see our beautiful faces on the TikTok and on the YouTube. This is where we are. If you're watching this on YouTube now, you can see us both voguing or doing something. Maybe we're doing something funny with our hands. Maybe we're wearing silly hats. Maybe we're juggling random things that happen to be on our desk. But I guess you'll never know unless you check us out on the YouTube, give us a like and subscribe.
Yes.
And we will see you, or you at least will hear us
Yes.
on
You
the
will see
next.
us if you want. Hear us what you're doing now. We will never know. And also, yes, and if you know anybody in Antarctica, anyone going to Antarctica, tell them, please, pretty, please. I'll send them a T-shirt or something. Please, please just listen to us so we can line up the map of listeners all over the world. That's the only continent that's outstanding. Someone somewhere's got to know somebody who's got nothing else to do after they're done doing their ice core drilling and they just want to listen to something. Pretty, please tell someone in Antarctica to just push play. Boing, one time. Push it.
We will get there. We'll definitely get there. I know that we spoke to a few people when we were in San Francisco about potentially getting mutual friends of ours to have a listen when they're in Antarctica. But until then, this has been another fantastical, scientific, and slightly absurd episode of Science Actually Presents The Nerd and the Scientist.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next time.